Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a June 18th edition of the MSP Initiative, MSP Talk, and we are fresh back off the road. I mean, fresh off the road. We were in multiple countries last week. We'll go over that here in some general housekeeping, and then we'll get into the good stuff as we are absolutely live and in person in this very special edition of MSP Initiative Live. We are in Tampa, at Flow, which we'll talk to you about this event here in a moment. So here's some general housekeeping that we usually do at the beginning of all of these sessions, mspinitiative.com. This is where we park everything that we do here at MSP Initiative. For example, this session is being recorded. We'll post it here on our YouTube page, our podcatcher, and sessions under the menu here at mspinitiative.com. We have MSP Community Minds. If you came out to Nashville, thank you, thank you, thank you. We have a new one coming up in September. In Denver, 25th, 26th. So if you're interested, check out Community Minds on mspinitiative.com. For everyone who came out to either the MSP Community Block Party at PAX 8 Beyond in Denver last week, or for people like George who decided to fly to two places at once, the MSP Block Party in Dublin with DattoCon. Thank you. We hope you had an absolute blast. We have photos and videos and photo booth pictures and all that stuff coming to you very shortly. It'll be posted. We'll announce it, so stay tuned. And there's more block parties coming. So if you're interested in knowing the ones coming up, hit the community block party page on mspinitiative.com. You'll notice that we have ones coming up in Australia, here domestically in the US. I think we've hit our European spots for the year, but don't worry. A lot of those people come over to the other side anyway. Lastly, some community offers. If you find any deals on the community offers page that help you, great, use them. If not, all good. And our industry calendar, because if you really want to be on the road, there's like 300 events for you to go to. It's also posted at mspinitiative.com. You can check it out there. We do that to make your life easier. So that was 4 or 5 minutes of housekeeping. We're out of the way. My first special guest of the day here. By the way, if you never heard of the Flow conference, this is an absolutely first-time event. All right, this is the first of its kind. We're here right next to the airport area here in Tampa. And if we've had him on before, but a real good friend of mine and a guy who's been in the sandbox for a long time, Charlie Tomeo from Roost. How you doing, Charlie?
Good to see you, George.
So tell us about the thought and the idea around this new event.
Yes, I think, as you know, I've joined Roost about 1.5 years ago now. Automation platform, definitely something that I think the MSP community was either looking for, didn't know they needed it, however you want to put it. But, we started to think, what it wouldn't be great when you see some of these other vendors that are doing something, either, similar to what we do. Wouldn't be great to just get together and do something that's just about automation, as you know, AI in there as well, right? Because, AI is everywhere. And just get a bunch of thought leaders in, have people talk about it, have some of the MSPs that I would consider more of the early adopters, share of, what they're doing, what they're learning, what they've learned early on, and be able to share some of those things. So we're seeing that already.
So just to be clear, while Roost is staffing this event, this is actually an industry event. It's not a Roost conference.
No, that's correct.
Okay, it's not Roost Con.
No, it's this is I'm just working for the Flow conference today.
Got it.
So we're trying to make sure that we do that. I think it's in the best interest of the community to get talking. So if you see we have the likes of Nerdio here, MSP bots, SaaS alerts, Crush Bank, you name list, and then people that are big, have been a big part of the community for a while. ConnectWise, Kaseya, some security plays, backup plays, Axie and SentinelOne.
So, even Halo's here, I saw.
Yeah, Halo's here, so it's great. It's great to see those guys come out and not just support us in our first conference, but also support the community.
That's awesome. How many people did you get to this conference?
So we hit our max, which was 240. So that's 240 attendees. We did a couple of free days. We did a free day on a specific boot camp on training on automation and Roost. And then we also did one that was Bo Bullock actually was the one that hosted it. And that was more of M365 security. And had a bunch of people coming out for that. So it was kind of standing room only.
It's pretty good for a first time event.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody's been following me, they know I have a lot of feelings about events,
Yeah.
but how long have you been working to put this together? I mean, it's not something you can do in 30 days.
No, this has been months in the working. And just sometimes you just have to, as you know, you've been doing events for years. Sometimes you just have to do it. So
Yeah.
as always, we'll get better. We'll learn from it. The really great thing that I think we all feel is the fact that, like I said, the community came in around us. We had to cut off registration at one point, which is a bit unfortunate, but we wanted to make sure that people that were coming had a good experience.
That's good. I mean, listen, there's also like fire marshals and capacity and all that other stuff, right? So like the people upstairs always have their fun with that.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool to see. We got people from, and I'll forget somebody, but Italy, Australia, UK, Ireland. So, it's even something that's kind of, further reaching.
That's awesome. Like, oh, not just thinking about the calendar, just thinking about what happened last week, right? Two major conferences on, on either side of the ocean here. Did that play the proximity to the large events on when you park this in the calendar, or did it really not matter?
I have to say, if you look at the calendar, we only had maybe 2 dates we could fit it in. If you look at all the things that are going on, and obviously we all don't have time to do everything.
Yeah.
But even with some of the I mean, this year I still can't believe it's only mid-year.
Yeah, June.
And I think we've been running, right?
Yes.
I've seen so many people on the road throughout it. So it's really interesting, but we tried to fit it in as best we could. Right after Father's Day, which maybe wasn't the greatest for the people that had to fly out that night, but we just tried to be respectful of people's time and also other events that are going on.
So let's talk about this category real quick. This RPA, robotic process automation, like Gartner word, right? Like we didn't come up with that. There's like 3-ish companies that are like focused in MSP IT land, right? I know there's enterprise companies that do similar things or are in the category, but it's a relatively maybe sub 4-year-old angle, right? Like thing. So I think there's a lot of skeletons in the closet from RMM days, right? Where like a lot of people got sold the message that, hey, this thing is, turn the key, start using it, it's easy. And I think very quickly everybody realized after they bought the car that no, it doesn't just have turn signals. I need to have somebody build them for me. And like a lot of, especially IT managed services companies, just didn't have DevOps or even in this realm of coding capability, right? To build scripts and like create things. They were users, right? Not necessarily creators.
That's right.
So when it comes to your category, is that like, how much of a challenge is that?
Yeah, so I think, you're 100% right. It really depends on who it is, how involved they're going to get. But for us, it's the reason why we pre-built a bunch of automations. So we call them crates. So anybody that's seen our logo knows that, our branding is definitely around roosters, chickens. But out of those 140, those are completely editable. So we have people that are kind of crate people. They just focus on those. So I ran into a guy last week at Beyond, and he was saying, hey, since the last time we talked last year, I have 100 crates from.
Wow.
And he's like, I've never coded anything.
So he just picked from your catalog.
Yeah. And he's like,
and just turned them on.
We're just getting a ton out of it. So we have people like that. We have people that are just amazing. And anybody that's been in it, MSP space for a minute knows how creative MSPs are. That go in, they take a couple of classes. We have actually a pretty extensive curriculum for them to come in, not just learn about Bruce, but learn about automation, best practices, building processes. That's Cluck University or Cluck U. And so we have people that go to a few of those classes, and all of a sudden they're building, they're building 9 custom automations over a weekend.
Wow.
So we have a bit of those, and then we do have the people that are looking maybe to not do either. So you'll see here we have Zentop and Raven, who are sponsors of the conference. They're actually able to build anything you want.
So they're
right?
customizers,
they're
right?
doing,
Yeah.
they're pro services, they'll go out and they'll build something that you need. So it really depends on the angle that you want to go for it. And we see some people doing it, almost all three in some respects, where they're starting just using what was already built, and then they're leveraging pro services to go and build the stuff that's a bit more custom for them.
So would you say that you don't need to be a larger IT shop in order to use this then? Like, let's say you're 5 or below, do they still qualify for something like this?
Yeah, it's amazing to see, a lot of the newer MSPs are looking at it as a way for them to grow their business without, they don't have the resources for the headcount. So if all of a sudden you're serving, you're saving hundreds of hours a month and you're not focused on those repetitive day-to-day, fairly easy tasks. If you're just automating those, then you're taking those 5 people and you're actually getting a lot more out of it.
For sure.
You're not having to add 10 people over time. So that's the feedback we've gotten from them. And, we had one partner that, over a weekend, he took a couple classes and he built, 10 automations. And he's like, yeah, I'm saving hundreds of hours.
Like when they're building these automations, like, are they literally writing lines of code, or is it visual?
So it's very, a lot of it's drag and drop. So they could do that. They could write it as well. They could use a feature called Robo Roosty, which is AI driven. They could put in basically what they want to get out of it, and it'll write the code in Jinja for them. So there's a lot of ways to tackle it. And, if anybody that's looked at us, even a year ago, it's almost not the same product.
Wow. Wow. If so I just hit 10 years in my one company, getting all these, all the LinkedIn messages, and one person reached out and they said, if you could think of the things that you learned across the 10-year window, what are the key points? I'm like, I really would have to write this down because there's so many.
Right.
But one of them is keep innovating, right? Like people who stop creating things, right? Like it's a fast realm that we're all a part of, right? And you can get to a point where you've lost touch with, the newness of what technology can bring, right?
Yeah, I think that's why you see, it's one of the spaces that we have new vendors popping up all the time, right? We even have very pointed vendors to fix a problem. And it's because, in some cases you get to that point where you just can't or don't innovate anymore. So I think that's where the community jumps in. We even see a lot of former MSPs that now are vendors.
Fair.
Right. So it's definitely a unique space.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's bring in our second guest, and we'll have both of you at the same time because we're all in the same circle. I'm sure everybody, out here that watches this probably heard him in one way or one fashion, one form. Bring Rob Ray onto the show today. How you doing, Rob?
Good. How are you doing, George?
Surprisingly feeling good after all the airplanes that I've taken in the last 8 days. So we were all in Denver last week, and I want to talk a little bit about, PAX 8 Beyond, right? Year 2, right? I would say I haven't heard anybody coming away from that event thinking it wasn't premium.
Well, that's good to hear.
So
I'm still vetting through the survey results.
Okay.
That's good to hear.
So what were the final metrics on this thing? How many people got there? How many people were you able to squeeze into that building?
Yeah, it was good actually. So we were just over 1,500 MSPs actually attend. I think we're just over 1,600 at reg. So reg to attend rate was actually really good.
That is good.
And then we had 110 vendors, including Roos and Beaver. Both of you award winners, by the way. Congratulations. We appreciate
awesome.
that. Yeah. So overall, I think it was 2,400 people, but that venue actually, if you remember where the vendor hall was, we can actually fit about 8,000 people up into there. So
wow,
we'll do some rejigging for next year and make sure we got lots of space for hopefully similar growth.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So one more year at the same place.
One more year in the Gaylord in Denver.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I think you're taking pre-registrations already for next year.
We already have about 600 or 700 signed up for next year, which is amazing. So.
Wow. And then there is the European first time version of this coming up in October.
Correct. Yeah, October 13th through the 15th in Berlin, Germany.
Awesome. And so this was the conference that never happened in the past life, right?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to do like Berlin. If you haven't been to Berlin, it's an absolutely amazing city. It's culturally just very, very different. Fantastic people, fantastic food, and like I said, the culture is just unbelievable. It's like a place you've never been to before. New airport, which makes it even easier to get to, all those types of things. So, I love the opportunity to bring people to a place that haven't been. Plus, Europeans, it's relatively easy for them to travel, but our goal is to also get Americans, Canadians, everybody to try to come out to that event as well.
I didn't know about the new airport. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I mean, for all the not great airports here on the East Coast, I'm down for a new airport. And this is after Oktoberfest, right? So like,
yeah, Oktoberfest is the last week of September. So, and that's, although, Oktoberfest is celebrated worldwide, but it's technically the birthplace, I believe, is in Munich.
Yeah.
So Munich's not far, maybe a 3-hour train ride. So I know there are some people that are going to partake in Oktoberfest and then head up to Berlin for.
that's so funny
beyond.
that people like don't realize that it's actually a September event. But
Yeah.
It's called Oktoberfest.
Correct. It's the celebration of October coming. So. Yeah.
So all those pumpkin beers pop up right at the same time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But I mean, I don't
Not
think.
over there.
Yeah, I don't think the Germans are drinking pumpkin beer. I think that's an American invention.
Of course, we did that, just like French fries, right? Let's talk a little bit about, because both companies represented at this table have a pretty good story to tell around some of the new things that came out last week, right?
Yeah.
Like Roost is all about automation, but I think a lot of the marketplace announcements that came from PAX 8 last week kind of are in a very similar realm, right? Like, what exactly did everybody wake up to this week in their portals?
Yeah, it's something that we've been working on for a couple of years. And to be honest, myself, I joined PAX 8 about 1.5 years ago. They showed me the vision of what it was that they wanted to do here with marketplace. And it's a catchphrase, and all disties are going to start using marketplace as a catchphrase if they haven't already, but this is a genuine actual marketplace. So we went GA with a lot of things that we've been talking about for some time. And PAX 8 partners will notice that there's a little toggle switch at the top of their portal page where they can actually toggle into the new marketplace. But in essence, the old marketplace would have been just what we like to refer to as just a dumb product catalog. Click on a logo, fill in a form, and provision licensing. Whereas the new marketplace, there's a whole ton of different technologies that we're utilizing. A lot of it is AI driven, where we can actually utilize these things to make product recommendations, to like add in and automatically just add in some like technologies. We can, because we have 35,000 partners that are doing, I think it's like 400,000 end user businesses. We actually have intelligence on each of those individual businesses. So again, product recommendations, we can take a look at the entire landscape of all the end users and make recommendations to MSPs to say, this typical end user of this size and this vertical and this geo, whatever, typically buys these types of tax, and we can make those recommendations. And if you look at technologies like Roost, that's a perfect example. A lot of it is kind of new that a lot of MSPs haven't discovered yet. So again, it's an opportunity for us to say, hey, MSPs of like size are generally having success selling these types of products. You should take a look at Roost or something along those lines. So, and that's just one small piece of it. Beyond that, MSPs have the opportunity to kind of take a look at other techs without necessarily engaging with those vendors directly. So you don't get on somebody's mailing list or have to sit through a million demo calls. So you have the opportunity to kind of explore those things as well. It's an easier, newer, and more automated way for us to engage and obviously help partners find more profitability.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I had a chance, third person now on the show, Aharon, now CEO over at Roost. So like we were all at Beyond, right? So this is great. One of the key themes, and I was able to sit on a lot of the general sessions at Beyond, was around AI, right?
Yeah.
We heard Scott Chasen, new CEO of PAX 8, talk about what he felt was the future, right? And I got a glimpse of like that Will Smith movie, I, Robot, where everybody had a robot in their place. Not sure how close we are to that. And the movie was US Robotics. I was like, didn't they make modems? I don't know what's going on. So just curious on like this whole AI topic. Like it's still really new. Like we're in I call it the wild, wild west of this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, open question to all of you, right? Like realistically, next 3 years, that's like a reachable time frame, right?
Yeah.
Like how far do you really see this going? I mean, from a technology standpoint, from an MSP standpoint, like is this, like, or are we talking about something 3 years from now that doesn't even exist?
Well, Scott's presentation, because we wanted to do also like a little bit of a future glimpse, right?
Yeah.
And by no means am I technical, so I'll turn it over to you guys to actually answer that question. But Scott's presentation is interesting because what it does, I mean, we are technology, right? And we have to continue to find ways in which the MSPs need to evolve their stacks, right? And I think Scott's presentation was a lot of obviously focused around AI. A lot of it led to robots. And his synopsis is that this technology and the need for this type of technology is growing so quickly that it'll be here before we even know it, more so than ever before. Yes, you can Hollywood doomsday it with all these, the robots are going to take over and stick us in our homes because we can't take care of ourselves, kind of thing. But who knows? I doubt it, but who knows? But where the opportunities lie, and his presentation was broken down in 3 parts, which is, what does the near term look like? What does the midterm look like? And what does the long term look like? All for the MSP, and how does the MSP fit into where AI is going, and what options are available, so that we can all at least think about these things as time goes on. But I'd be curious to your opinions on it.
So AI, as it relates to automation, specifically, because it's something I think a lot about. AI will continue to advance and advance rapidly, but think of AI outside of the tech world. Think of AI, in manufacturing. Think of it in like physical security, like standing in front of a building. All of these things have something in common, which is it doesn't matter how advanced AI is, unless you give it a machine to be in, it can't do these physical tasks. And then you relate that back to automation. It doesn't matter how advanced or generative the AI is, unless you give it a machine to be in, the AI can't automate your tasks either, right? So AI is not a message queuing system. AI is not a multi-tenancy system. It's not an integration machine. It's a decision-making tool, right? And so I see it expanding both physically through robots, as was discussed, but also software-wise via robots as well.
Interesting. I'm going to go on to a category here that, probably is only being discussed now, right? The information that gets fed into the ChatGPTs and the OpenAIs and the Microsoft Copilots and all this stuff, right? Like there's a security, privacy, like where's my data go after I put it into the engine type question that comes up more frequently now, right? And like, I know everybody's probably doing these, cybersecurity training sessions because it's like pretty common now for compliances. And I actually just did one for my company the other day, and it's like, hey, the person, instead of KFC, it was MFC, right? They just changed the letter. And they're like, oh, they put the secret recipe in. And like all of a sudden, everybody had the secret recipe because they asked the same engine what a good recipe for fried chicken was. And then all of a sudden the recipe was out there. Like, that's not really crazy, right? Like what happens to the information once it gets processed by the system? How much of a concern is that, right? I know that we're in a day and age where you're opting in, right? Every time you log into a Facebook or an Instagram or a whatever, right? They're like, hey, by the way, we're processing your data. I think like, hopefully you read it. Nobody does. Definitely not when they open up their Apple devices, they just say yes. But how much of a concern is that from is my data like now being shared with everybody almost unknowingly?
There's a contractual end user licensing agreement that should state what's going to happen with your data, and regardless of what that says, there should be concern. But I'll make you think about it a little bit differently. So back in 2010 timeframe, when SaaS was really starting to take off, I worked in financial services, and the big banks were saying, we're never going to go to the cloud, too risky, too insecure. We're going to keep everything on-prem. Cloud is for those small joke banks out there. And fast forward to today, and nearly 100% of these large banks are now primarily in the cloud.
Except for all those AS400s that still
Yeah,
exist.
but nothing has changed. There's the security in the cloud is the same as it was in 2010. Nothing's changed. So why did these banks make the decision? Well, the value, the benefit started to far outpace the risk. And right now, when it comes to AI and your data, the benefit and the risk, it might lean more towards risk than benefit, or it might be right on par with benefit. But in the future, if they find a way to make it so you get heaps and heaps of value out of AI, all of a sudden, no one's going to be asking the question about where is my data.
Yeah.
Just like the banks today, they don't know where their data is in the cloud. It's somewhere in AWS and Microsoft's data center somewhere.
It's a similar, like if you think about when the cloud adoption started coming in, hot topic, how secure is it? Obviously, if it's AWS or Microsoft, it must be uber secure. We find out it's not. We still need to keep an eye on everything. But it's the same conversation people were having about the cloud 15 years ago. It's going to be the same conversation we have with AI, but you can't stop progress. That's the thing. So where the MSP comes in is what's the value out of the MSP in things like security management, all those types, to make sure that these things are being checked and balanced as opposed to end users trying to figure it out on their own, especially in the SMB space. Controversial topic, though. I'd be curious as to what you think, because there's a couple of MSPs that have mentioned this, where you think about what the cloud was originally supposed to do for the managed services channel. It was supposed to improve security. It was supposed to improve margins. It was supposed to be easier, faster, and create lots of avenues for new revenue streams. Definitely, we've seen some of that. But now they're starting to discover that maybe margins aren't as high as they used to be. So there's also this talk about maybe in the S part of the SMB market, maybe on-prem is a better solution because it's cheaper, more secure in some people's minds. So there are some people that are thinking maybe we need to retract a little bit.
I mean, my feeling is I could argue both sides. I could argue that on-prem is more secure, and I could argue that cloud is more secure. And then secure and price don't necessarily go hand in hand. You can pay more for an insecure application of a product or less for a more secure one. I would say that some of the eroding margins on SaaS is probably pricing increasing on the SaaS side. You would think that due to SaaS commoditization, the pricing would actually be going down, but that's not what I'm seeing. There's such a demand for it. Why reduce the price? And then as far as continuing to erode margins, MSPs have professional services practices that used to make money off of hardware refreshes, like the servers in the closet and the software that ran the line of business apps. And now they're not able to resell servers because it's all in the cloud, and the line of business apps are in the cloud, and that would also erode margins due to cloud usage.
You see that all the time with the stuff. We've seen that with you were at a backup company for a minute or two, right? So you saw how that evolved. But even in our personal lives, everyone thought when we had services like Hulu TV and YouTube TV and all these things pop up, did we really think that the guys making all that money are going to sit in the back? So now I see this, I'm sure you guys see it in your own lives. How many streaming services do you have to have because you want to watch one show here, one show here, like and all this stuff? And now all of a sudden it's like that cable bill didn't seemed huge. Now it's like, hey, maybe it's not that bad anymore, right? I mean, they hit you up for everything where they're walling off content. And I think that's the same thing with these guys, is they've gotten everyone's gotten addicted to it. That I think you're probably right. It probably should be cheaper, but they're like, hey, what are they going to do?
No, as a bundle, like now they're bundling a lot of these services together. And we'll talk
Trying
about
to-
that in a second,
to
yeah.
all play that.
And so when you add it all together, right, YouTube TV, Hulu, Disney Plus, like Netflix, Paramount Plus, I mean, Prime Video,
Apple TV.
Apple TV, oh, there's some really good shows on Apple TV. It really does add up to more than it used to as just a cable bill with all the premium channels, for sure.
But I don't know if you've done, I actually was thinking about this the other day, because I remember back in the day, I was actually saying there is no freaking way I'm ever going to pay per view TV, like it, because you had cable, you had 1,000 channels, it was just all there. And then you fast forward to today, it's just such commonplace. But you know, the expectation of quality is also there, right? Because no longer, if you take a look at the shows we used to watch, or some of the crap that regular networks are putting out there, it's lame versus the quality that you're getting on a lot of these services.
I still think A-Team, Knight Rider, and Airwolf are still. That was my jam. Welcome Cynthia from Cyber QP to the show. Welcome. This is great gizmo. I don't have to do anything. It just works. Talking about one topic, and I'm not gonna put names, but we're gonna just talk about it. Not too long ago, we heard about, hey, you know, the low price, all inclusive, you know.
Beach
Yeah.
resort?
No, SaaS pricing, right? We're talking about some of this, like SaaS pricing going up versus going down, and the bundling conversation, right? So we heard, you know, a pretty big vendor in the sandbox come out and say, hey, you know, we've followed a Microsoft mechanism, right? And we've now created a low cost SKU, right? And threw a bunch of stuff in. Haven't really looked into it personally myself, but like that's one example where it went the other way, right? Where
I mean, there's software licensing, which does tend to go down over time, but compute and storage in the cloud has not necessarily gone the same direction.
So do you think that's a disruption move, and does that change the path for the rest of the industry?
It could be a disruption move. If your products are targeted by that bundle.
Okay.
And then the difficult is the disruption only really works if, you know, the value of those products in the bundle is there.
Right. So do products in SaaS land lose value over time? Is it possible?
They need to innovate, continue to innovate.
Yeah, that would be the key, right? Is
Yeah.
innovation, features have to continually improve. That's the only way that you can kind of maintain a price. Otherwise, you know, yes, they're going to get cheaper if they're aging out and becoming less and less relevant.
Okay.
And if they're not putting that money into development. Or is it sort of like your cell phone plan? It was a really good deal for those first few years, but then you can't quite find a good price unless you go to another carrier.
Right.
So, you know, is it gonna be like, or like my internet service that I have to continually change when I get mad and someone else has a better deal?
Yeah,
But-
I mean, you see it, George, that we still see these newer vendors popping up.
Yeah,
right? And
all
we
the time.
See them getting traction in the RMM space, one of our sponsors, Halo. We see them everywhere now, right?
Mhm,
You know,
they
we
are
see them
everywhere.
everywhere, we see people talking about them.
I hear people talking about all the time.
Positively, so if you look at something like that, you'd say, well, hey, nobody's gonna change those things, you just wouldn't, right, it's too much. And I think, to your point, like, they get you locked in, maybe it's not as great, and then if you're not, the key was innovate, right? If you don't continue to innovate, something else potentially come in.
So what about the hidden cost of always moving these technologies around? I mean, there's time and labor costs that always get lost in this calculation.
Well, there's always the piece, and we'll use Halo as an example here, where I think part of the appeal of Halo isn't just that it's kind of a new shiny object. I mean, obviously they've been doing this for a lot of years, just relatively new to the MSP space, but what they figured out is a more automated way to do that transition. Something that was immensely manual to the point where, yeah, it didn't make sense. No matter how upset you were, no matter how much you hated the tech you had, it didn't make sense because of the lift and shift to go to new stuff. So that piece of making it easy for people to transition, it sounds like they've got that dialed in. At least that's what they're saying.
I mean, that's a great marketing message, but is it really easy?
Well, nothing's easy.
Well,
Everything
I
takes
think
time.
even if it's not completely accurate, what I think it does is it pushes the incumbent to have to do more and be more creative, even if that's price or something else. Whereas I think to Rob's point, a lot of people would go tire kicking, let's say to replace BCDR, but you knew the lift was too much,
Right.
right? It just wasn't worth it. So I think some people kind of looked at that like, they're never going to move. And I think we're seeing more that people are moving.
There is something to, though, like if I look at your two organizations, Cyber2P, Roost, there's something to being also getting involved with an organization or a tech that early, because they can have some more influence over your roadmap, over how you're going about your channel, your partner program, than a legacy provider. So there's also some distinct advantages to also getting in early. Imagine if you're, ConnectWise partner number 10, like there's some clout that goes along, and chances are they have their fingerprints over a lot of the tech that ConnectWise was creating at the time. Yes, it's now 15, 20 years later, and it's a little less, more of being able to get them to shift to do something or develop something or change something. So, there is something about also getting involved with new tech early.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one of the things, and Aaron, I'll tell you, the first week I started, I got invited to, some regular meetings, and I get invited to this open mic. And I said, what the heck is an open mic? It's like, yeah, we have all these partners, they come on and we discuss like what we're doing, let them share things. And I said, okay, so when, like, do you gate the questions people ask? He's like, oh, no, it's open mic. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, oh, no, he goes, it is a free for all. So they could ask anything they want, they could do anything. And we're up to what, 200? So every week. And to your point is these are the guys that are in it every day.
Yeah.
So we probably spend 10 minutes on our housekeeping stuff. And it's their meeting.
Yeah.
Like they ask whatever they want, they share stuff so people get to see anything. And just being on the revenue side, I was like, well, this sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Right. To just let people, because as we know, most MSPs aren't shy with giving you their opinion, but it's worked out greatly. Everyone's real respectful.
Yeah.
They share. And then the other thing that I think that we do is a bit unique. I've never had this. We're leveraging Discord, which,
the gaming server.
Well, that's my kids saw I had Discord. My son's 22. He's like, why would you have Discord on your phone? I'm like, oh, we use it at work. He's like, there's no way you use it at work. But the fact that like you're communicating the way, it's like we always talk about, even like some of the stuff Jay McBain said about how they've changed how they buy.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's not, they've made this decision. By the time you talk to them, they've made this because they, younger people, or at least the way things have gone, they do things differently than we would have done 10 years ago. But even the Discord is something that they're in this all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So why not go to them where they live? And we've seen some great success on that.
Wow, must be a lot of content being created in order for people to buy, and they're gonna buy before they go to check out the car at the lot,
Or
right?
so they think, right?
Right.
It's the whole Amazon approach to it.
I don't know if
can
I
do
buy
my
a
own
car
research.
sight unseen, that's just me.
I actually did this. No.
Brand new or used?
I totally wanted to give this a try, right? And it's completely foreign to us because you never want to buy a car that you haven't test driven. But I use Carvana. So I have an old truck, beat up old truck that I actually sold on Carvana and then purchased a new one, a new Bronco, and literally did not talk to a single human being through changing over the licensing, the ownership, did not talk to anybody. Every insurance, everything was done virtually. And yes, as a older person, I'm like, this is all going to go sideways real soon. The only person I saw was the guy that brought the car, the new car, dropped it off.
And new or new used?
New used.
Okay.
23, but brought the new car. He said, give it a test drive. If you like it, it's yours. If not, I'll take it back. And then he loaded up my truck and deal's done.
Wow.
So you even had the opportunity, like, once you saw it, to say,
I don't like
no.
it. You got 7 days to be able to turn around and say, I don't like it. You
Oh,
can swap it out.
really should really push that 7-day thing
Yeah.
a little bit more. That'd be interesting.
Might have been 30. But
It's good to know though, like,
Oh, yeah, if this
I
car
don't-
breaks down on day 2. I'm pissed.
yeah, but I don't feel like they market that enough.
I forced myself to go that route because, like you said, we have to start thinking like, because there's going to be a point where, I mean, think about like our grandparents, they're not on the internet. You don't even want to give them access to the internet, much less Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. Right?
Don't difference online, grandma.
No. So there's gonna be a point where we are those people in the younger generation. So we also need to continue to think about these things. So I actually did it. And to be honest, it was a really good experience. I'm quite pleased with it.
Would you do it again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you see how it is, the balls are going away, right? So everyone that used
Yeah.
to like go in, I gotta touch it, I gotta feel it, like. Those experiences are gonna be gone.
Well, Amazon has a try before you buy, right? So
I
can
still,
get-
like, there's a little bit, and we'll talk about brand in a second, and we'll probably close with the community topic, but, do you trust the thing that you're buying, like the company that you're buying from, the person that you're buying from? Like, you wouldn't have, like, if it went sideways, you'll figure it out, but like, you probably saw a lot of commercials and a lot of branding around Carvana before you said, I'm gonna give this a try.
Mhm.
So I think there's how much do you need to do in order for somebody to say, yeah, they look like a reputable, like, they don't look like they're, fly by night, side of the road, corner type thing. I'm willing to at least give it a try, right? Like, there's a little bit of that in anything that you're buying. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like Cynthia was about to say was
the try before you buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Amazon, right? Like, so to your point, I want to touch it, I want to feel it, I want to make sure it looks good. Maybe I lost some weight, or maybe something else is going on. I can get a whole pile of clothes from Amazon that I have not purchased yet, try them all on, and as long as I send them back in the amount of time that they gave me, I only have to keep and there's no styling fee or anything like that you might see with some of these other services. So,
But you were willing to try that with Amazon because you know the name Amazon. If you
That's
did it
right.
with a different name.
no, I've done it with like Stitch Fix or Wannable or something like that, but I am paying a styling fee there.
Okay.
So like, but if I buy everything, then I don't have to have the fee.
but I think that's the key, right? And it's the same with Carvana. Like, the fact that I had this, I can't remember if it's a 7 or 30-day return policy, like, and the other part of it too, that a lot of these services do, you gotta make it super easy. Right?
Yeah.
If you like, I've done the same. I've returned stuff on Amazon. They make it super easy, no questions
Until
asked.
somehow
throw
the
it in
cat
box.
made it into the box that went back to Amazon. You hear that story? And then all of a sudden there was a warehouse cat.
One thing, back on the package SaaS thing, one
Yeah.
thing that I heard at that show where it was announced that I thought was really interesting was a few MSPs that said, I didn't think that I would have really considered that option, but I'm looking for an exit in about 3 to 4 years. And what that pricing can do to my bottom line might be worth me making a switch.
There is an argument, though, that a couple of MSPs have made saying that they can get that same pricing if they just talk to their vendors, or if you actually take a look at it, it's not necessarily that good. And then there's like, you have to dig in through a lot of terms.
All the
and
terms,
conditions.
100%. But I just thought it was interesting to hear people that, I mean, even a day before would have been like, absolutely not, I never would have. And then they're like, well, when I think about my business and my bottom line and my goals for my business and my family, maybe that is something worth looking into. So
But I
just
think
thought
that's, but the damage that does when you have, let's say, a point vendor that maybe only has a couple of offerings,
Mhm.
if they do have to basically kill their margins a bit to win that deal.
Yeah.
If you have a catalog, you kind of like, all right, no big deal. They're gonna, now I'm really gonna make it hurt for them, right? We're gonna change now what the price looks like. And I think that, you were talking about that, like, that's where it could be pretty ugly because they just want to get you in. It's like the reason why we all go crazy that we could get, if you switch providers, you get a better deal
Mhm,
than the guy that you were with for 15 years,
mhm.
right? They're not giving you that.
And a free phone.
Yeah.
So let me just ask this question point blank. We're all on this side, right? The vendor side of the train tracks. You in one way you are too, right?
Yeah,
You just
absolutely.
help that. Do you see MSPs selling their services sight unseen, click to buy, e-commerce like that? I feel like that's a little bit hard to do.
I think at this particular moment, I think it's even hard for us to fathom that. But at some point, I mean, can we see commoditization of that? Remember, we're talking about tools, and it's like what Aaron mentioned with the professional services. That's where the MSPs are going to make their money. It's the services that they wrap around all the tools that they've got. These tool discounts and bundling and just total price discounting. It's the tool. Ultimately, it's gonna be the services where the revenue is anyway, so.
So you're asking if MSP is gonna be able to
Yeah,
say.
imagine going
"Do you
to
want
GeorgeMSP.com, toggle a couple buttons, put your credit card in, bam, you're on, you bought.
So we created, and we went GA with it last week at Beyond, storefronts, right? Literally MSPs can set up their own storefronts because there is this automation piece to what people are buying. That being said, what they are buying are tools, right? The professional services aspect of it, sure. Are they going to opt in? There's something to it, which is why we created the storefronts in the first place, so that people think that they're doing their own research, they're doing their own kind of buying and then buying a package along with it, that it would be the services. So, we're making some bets that we can see that happening, but I think it's a journey. I don't think it's something.
I think it's a journey. I think it takes a lot more education. Right, so like end users, MSP's clients really understanding more of what they need.
The more
out of an IT company.
that we think it can happen is probably the more it will happen.
Yeah,
It's very like contrarian and go the opposite direction as the market, and like you think, okay, could it happen? Well, if everything the MSP is reselling and deploying software wise is SaaS. Yeah. And then
There's some labor
and
there
then,
though, right?
yeah.
Like there's the
Correct.
actual.
But like go on and pick an IT company, what, because you saw a Super Bowl ad?
The customers will also mature as well, like.
Yes,
After the customer has gone through 6 or a dozen MSPs, they know exactly what
That's true.
MSP does.
That's fair.
That's true.
It won't be educating them why they need an MSP, it'll be educating them how you're different.
Yeah, which MSP?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I think if it's something that you're offering month to month, they just may not care.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
like,
very true too.
I'll give it a go because it's
Can just
on
cancel.
them to
Yeah,
do all the work to support me,
Right.
so.
And if you don't like it, return it with your cat.
right, or if you just want if you want a better deal, then you sign the contract.
interesting. So let's
You
use,
get there.
well, I know there's some companies like electric,
I was about to say, doesn't
That does
electric
this.
do that?
but I just like, I would be very scared as an MSP, me just putting that hat on, is like, I have no idea what you have, where you're coming from. What happens if you signed up? I have 50 computers, employees, I sign up for 50 employees and you're still running Windows XP. And I gotta like, do, you know what I mean? Like that's a bit of a jump to get you to, okay.
What if part of that automated process is some type of scan, right? So you have the data to be able to say, or it's just it's an asterisk to say, here's an estimated price, but we're gonna have another conversation. Look, we're thinking like 40 and 50-year-olds. We're not thinking like 20-year-olds,
Yeah.
right? And
Well, I
that's-
think,
that's the next generation.
I'm gonna-
25% of the workforce by next year will be Gen Zers.
okay, that's good to know. Like, I'll throw this wrinkle out there. They're not here, but Cork, right? Another cool startup company. I don't think they're more than a couple years old.
Yeah.
They have this warranty solution, but like your premium is dependent on the scan.
Yeah.
So like if you don't have certain criteria, either you won't be offered coverage or the scan will tell you how much your premium is based on how many things are that they need you to have in place.
It's like taking a physical.
Right.
Well, you use the Carvana example again, like when I posted my truck as a trade-in, they ask you a whole bunch of questions about the truck. How much
Sure.
rust and damage, those kinds of
Sure.
things. And then it does take them about 24 hours before they come back and say, we think your car is worth this, or we're willing to pay you this. So,
So I wonder if, you guys who are building things, I wonder if there's a way to put that type of, automation or scanning, or that could be the wrinkle that, would help move that whole.
by the way, we collectively just came up with this idea. This is all of our businesses, patent pending,
Exactly.
patent
Yes.
pending.
Well, it's recorded, so we're good.
Somebody that could build it.
I'm just, hey, like, I don't like,
can
we were
make
just
it look
spitballing
pretty.
here, right? But like, this is the missing piece, right? To like cross-check I have no idea what I'm walking into, right?
Do you know what his first law is, right? It's, you can't automate a process that doesn't exist, right? So we create the process, we'd be ready to
Yeah,
go.
do it by hand first
Yeah,
and then start thinking.
I mean, the
about
process of evaluating what your end customer has, to then determine what they need in order to get where they're going. That's not, I mean, that's out there, right? We can
Yes.
all debate it, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, there is a blueprint for this. So think about that as we're in the back room tinkering. All right, let's talk about community real quick at the end of this, but you know, we heard a lot last week at Beyond about, hey, you know, like people are going to click and buy and sight unseen. They're not going to talk to anyone. It's all online. No people. Carvana, the Amazon, right, or the cell phone company. There's a very different vibe in the sandbox when it comes to the conversation and community, right? And quite frankly, you know, I've been saying for my entire journey, I wish I had found the sandbox sooner because I was learning things the absolute hardest way by failing first in order to figure out what worked or not, rather than learning from the people around me. So how much of that, in your opinion, moving forward into the future, is that still important? And is that still part of the puzzle?
So for the past 10, 12 years or so, all the startups have really focused on this product-led growth model, and to some degree still seems like a hot model, but at least at Roost, we're following a community-led growth model, not a product-led growth model, and it's been awesome. And it is much harder to do than product-led growth. Because people think, I'll just stand up a Slack server, I'll just stand up a Discord server, and suddenly now I have community. I'll do a monthly call with, you know, my advisor MSPs, and now I have a community. Community is much more difficult than that. It is you're creating a family. And it's not just the bond in the community between the MSP and the vendor, it's the bond between the MSPs and each other. And it's almost impossible to do it. And so not a lot of companies want to put that effort in. What's going to happen is there's going to be a leader in every segment in the MSP space that's brought in the community, right? You're going to have an RMM leader that has the community behind it. You're going to have a PSA leader, an automation platform leader, a distributor leader, all that have adopted the community, and every newcomer is going to have to create that community to compete.
Wow.
Well, it goes back to, you know, we still have to think about the human element of everything that we do and the transact that we've got. People like to do business with people, right?
Yeah.
And as good as your technology is, if you're an asshole, people don't want to do business with you. I mean, the
No,
MSPs
it's
have
so
the same
true.
thing, right?
It's so true.
You know, it's you can be the cheapest on the market, you can have the best tech on the market, but a lot of times it also comes back to your experience with them. And do they answer their phones? Do they care about you? Do they put on events such as this and pull everybody together for that peer-to-peer connection? Do they create those vehicles to do it? I don't think you mentioned that it's hard. I don't think it's hard. I just don't think a lot of people put enough effort into it, because it is something that it's an investment. It is an investment. I mean, putting on your event now, that costs money.
It's hard.
Right, of course it is. But you'll bear fruit from this as a result. You'll have goodwill. And then next year that you do this, it'll be double the size, right? That kind of thing. So, you know, it is, you know, I've built arguably some of the best communities in this space, and it is hard, but it's such a necessary piece. But if you really care about this community, it's really not that difficult. It really isn't. But
Yeah, but there a lot of the stuff, you know, you're a great example of this. I've known you for years. You're on planes, you're shaking hands with people, you're meeting with them, you're genuine. You're on Facebook responding to people.
Yeah.
You know, so like, you're right. It's almost like a blocking and tackling approach.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just look at it like, yeah, we're not going to go do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not worth it. I mean, it's the
I
reason why, you know, he's out of a lot of events.
Yeah.
Now, we could argue that he's the CEO, right? You know, he's the guy that, you know, come up with this invention, right, of what to go do. But, you know, people want to see it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with you,
Yeah.
right? You know, we're honored that you came here. We know that people want to see you. these events. but
Well,
it
you didn't
shows that the
discount my
community-
sponsorship.
Oh,
Maybe
really?
next time.
I'll tell you what to say next.
We're just gonna sell more through,
Through Pack
Through Pack
Eight, even better. I learned this a long time ago, actually, back at Level Platforms days, an old RMM. We had terrible tech for 6 months and then great tech for 6 months. But the thing is, it got to the point where we broke it so much that our partners turned to us and said, I can't do business with you anymore. But we had such a phenomenal team and great tech support that when people left us, they had to leave us because we just technically were not giving them enough tech. But we had a lot of runway. And it was this amazing thing that when people left us, they called to apologize. That I'm sorry, you're killing my business. I have to leave. And it's not like there wasn't anger or anything. It's like, I don't want to go, but you guys just aren't good enough. I mean, that's when all of a sudden, at least myself, this is probably about 12 years ago, came to the conclusion of, yeah, we can, if we can figure out good tech. And by the way, I will vouch all day long for having a CEO that is technically inclined. I think that if the leader of these organizations, and I experienced this with Awesome Recorded Data, we're going to experience this now with Pax8 and Scott Jason, being technically inclined.
Yeah.
As the leader, they're focused on the right things. I think it makes our job as biz dev and sales way easier.
Absolutely.
I think the other part of community that I would want to touch on that they haven't touched on is how you treat your people internally, right? So like this week, right, like seeing all of the Roost people and how they interact with each other and the shared experience that they're having, right, is only going to make your internal community better. And now when they call in and they have to talk to someone, or it's someone they haven't seen at the booth before, you're building on all of that. And when your internal community is good, that shines through as well, right? And so then even if there's hiccups with tech or whatever, that the people that you're dealing with are happy where they're at, they're well taken care of. And so they're going to turn around and be good to you too, which helps foster community, even if that's not someone that they see on the road. Yeah. So it all like builds into each other.
I love the idea that you guys are doing your first user conference. Lion Guard's got theirs coming up in a couple months. CyberQP's doing one this year.
Yep,
I think it's
second
awesome.
one.
Is it your second?
Yeah, we had one last year in July.
Yeah, I think it's just awesome like that we're still maintaining, going back to your comment of how important the community piece is. So
yeah,
I think it's very cool to see in our space.
I mean, think of it like you build social media software and then you have to get people to use it. I would argue building the software is easier than building the community around.
Yeah, but that's because you're technical. I could never build software. I think that's amazing.
I can get a group of 20 people together for dinner.
Right.
Probably, with one post, you get 2,000 people to show.
Easy, but I couldn't code my way out of a paper bag.
Yeah, and I think that's where the, for us, what we've seen, to your point, it's always been tough to get the people that aren't, customer facing, but our customer support is them understanding like, hey, this is what these people care about. Like, here's why it's important to the business. You can't just, the numbers don't always add up to it, right? Because I always viewed it as, you do the wrong thing by one, and they could touch 10,000 other MSPs.
But there is a lot of truth to that. I mean, and now with the internet, I mean, people can get, I hate to bring up the Reddits though, but like, it's where we go to watch the car crash.
It's the best thing and worst thing to happen.
I found a very happy corner of Reddit.
Do you want to share that?
I would love to, but y'all are all gonna make fun of me, but I'm prepared for it.
Okay, what is it?
Animal Crossing. They're the nicest people in the world that play Animal Crossing.
That's a game.
It's a game. It's like on a Nintendo Wii game, and it's just you're building a community. That is all you're doing. But it's like little animals, and you have flowers, and like they are the nicest, happiest people.
Can I create a friendly community of TSA security agents?
Sure, you creating a friendly community is not gonna happen.
No, not especially when it comes to TSA.
There'll definitely be some trolls in there, I gotta guess.
I'm gonna find the dark side of Animal Crossing. I'm sure there is.
There was like one bad egg, but for the most part,
So if Pax8 Rob is in one of these communities.
Yeah.
You know where the darkness is coming from.
they're like, God, these people are just like up late eating chips and like building a house. It's like really fun.
There's still, well, Animal Crossing aside, there's still a lot of learning on Reddit as much as.
No,
There's
fair.
also a lot of.
But I also feel like there's just a little bit of a negative tilt sometimes,
Yes.
and like unnecessarily so, but that's just my
Just
opinion.
gotta find the happy.
There are
I
happy.
take everything with a grain of salt, good and
Fair,
bad.
You
fair.
always take the high road. George. That's the Best way.
That is something I try to practice at.
Yeah.
As a guy from, Philly area, it's against the nature of the people. Huh?
George always takes the high road, is that what you just said?
I said I try to.
Oh, tried.
I said I work at this.
You were saying it doesn't come back.
That's totally fair. I like the new George.
Thank you, thank you.
Still.
So we're already at the hour, a little bit over. I really appreciate you guys. By the way, this is great. Like, this is the kind of conversations we have at the bar and hallway. Like, these are the best kinds of conversations, right? Like, a little bit informal and like cool things can come out of it. So I really appreciate you guys obviously inviting us to do this. This, I think, it's not done yet, but in my opinion, from what, I think it's a very successful first event, guys. So I just want to congratulate you ahead of time. I know I'm not the first person, but
Appreciate it.
good job on getting everybody to come out here. And even though it's a little warm here in Tampa and the air conditioning's cranking in this place, it looks like it's being very well received. And for that matter, I know that you said, hey, we sprinted to get to June, right? Like, there's still 6 more months. And by the way, this isn't actually formally conference season, right?
Well, I've been pretty much every month these days.
Yeah.
Right, but like September, October, November is historically like machine gun, right? And the conferences that stack up in that, in that realm. So, I know you guys are always on the road. Everybody at this table does a lot of FaceTime. So I'm looking forward to running into you guys. Obviously, not just completing this event, but in the future. And I'm excited for the back end of this year. I really am. Thanks for doing this.
Appreciate it.
For everybody that is listening to this or maybe watch it live, this whole session was recorded, like we do them all. We're gonna post them online at mspinitiative.com under sessions on YouTube and the podcatchers and all that stuff. Keep checking back with us. We'll try and do this more often, right? Because this is actually pretty fun. And we'll catch up with everybody later. Thanks, guys, for watching.